Why is it that you will happily spend, like, 20 minutes driving across town just to save $5 on a $15 pen, but you won't walk a single block to save that exact same $5 on a $1,000 laptop?
Right, yeah.
I mean, mathematically, it is the exact same $5 staying in your bank account,
Right.
and the effort required is actually even less in the second scenario. But your brain simply doesn't care about absolute math.
No, it really doesn't.
It cares about context. We all walk around believing we are these highly logical, rational decision makers charting our course based on hard facts. But the reality is far stranger.
That is the ultimate paradox of behavioral economics. I mean, we take massive pride in our autonomy, our ability to weigh the pros and cons of our choices.
Absolutely.
Yet beneath the surface of almost every decision we make, there are these powerful, invisible forces like arbitrary expectations, hidden emotional triggers, social norms that just quietly drag us miles off course. And we usually have absolutely no idea it's happening.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are stripping away the illusion of the perfectly rational human. We are pulling apart the groundbreaking concepts from Dan Ariely's Predictably Irrational to shortcut your path to understanding these hidden forces.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating journey.
It really is. Because the truly wild realization here isn't just that we make mistakes, it's that our irrationality isn't random. It forms highly specific, completely predictable patterns.
Right. The predictability is the crucial part here. Because if human irrationality were just a series of random, chaotic misfires, it would be impossible to study, let alone correct.
Yeah, we'd just be flailing around.
Exactly. But because we make the exact same types of illogical choices over and over again in the exact same contexts, well, we can map out these forces. We can actually see the cognitive wires dictating our actions.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the foundational wire that trips us up more than any other. It's the concept of relativity.
Oh, a big one.
Yeah, we don't evaluate things in a vacuum. We don't possess, like, an internal absolute value meter that tells us what a car or a sandwich or an hour of our time is objectively worth.
No, and the cognitive mechanism there is actually metabolic.
Wait, metabolic, like calorie burning?
Yeah, exactly. Determining the absolute value of something is incredibly expensive for your brain. You'd have to calculate utility, factor in opportunity costs, project the lifespan of the item, and weigh it against thousands of alternative purchases.
That sounds exhausting.
It is. Our brains are designed to conserve energy, so they take a shortcut. Instead of asking, what is this worth, the brain asks, is this better or worse than the thing sitting directly next to it?
Okay.
We assess value almost entirely through relative comparisons.
Which leaves us wide open to manipulation. Like, think about the classic magazine subscription model. This is famously illustrated by an old ad from The Economist.
Oh, this is such a great example.
Right, so imagine you are on their pricing page right now. Option A is an internet-only subscription for $59. Option B is a print-only subscription for $125.
Okay.
And option C is a print and internet combination subscription, also for $125.
Yeah.
You look at option B paying $125 just for print when you could get print and the internet for the exact same price, and it looks like a typo. It seems completely absurd that anyone would ever choose it.
It looks absurd, but it is a highly calculated decoy. That print-only option was deliberately engineered to manipulate your perception.
Wow.
If they only offered the internet for $59 and the combo for $125, well, you'd have to do that hard cognitive work. You'd have to genuinely ask yourself if you need the physical magazine enough to justify spending an extra $66.
But the moment you introduce that decoy, the $125 print-only option, the brain just skips the hard math completely.
Totally skips it.
You just look at the $125 combo and think, well, I'm essentially getting the internet subscription for free. It suddenly looks like an incredible steal.
Right, because the decoy removes the cognitive load. It gives you a simple, undeniable relative comparison that makes the most expensive option look like a massive bargain. And, this tactic is everywhere.
It really is. Like, you walk into a nice Italian restaurant hoping for a simple, satisfying meal. You see a chicken parmesan for $15. Sounds great, reasonably priced.
Yeah.
But right next to it, strategically highlighted in a little box, is a massive seafood linguine for $35. Suddenly, the $15 chicken doesn't just look like dinner. It looks like a frugal, highly responsible financial decision.
Exactly.
The mere presence of the $35 dish reshapes your entire inclination towards selecting the $15 one.
It alters the perceived baseline. And this cognitive quirk isn't just restricted to commerce, it bleeds directly into our social lives, too.
Oh man, the dating application of this is hilariously grim.
Yeah, it really is.
If you want to be perceived as more attractive at a party, the underlying math of relativity suggests you should bring along a friend who has a broadly similar physical profile to you, but is just slightly less attractive.
Yeah. You literally bring a human decoy.
It sounds so cynical, I know, but the psychological mechanism operates identically to the magazine subscription.
Really?
Yeah, because evaluating human attractiveness in an absolute sense is highly subjective and difficult. If someone is trying to choose between you and a completely different person across the room, it's a complex apples to oranges comparison.
Right.
But if they see you standing next to a slightly less refined version of yourself, the comparison becomes simple. In that specific pairing, you are the objectively superior choice, which subconsciously elevates your overall perceived attractiveness to the entire room.
Okay, I hear that. But surely there's a limit to the decoy effect, right?
Mm.
I mean, if I open a diner and put a $500 hamburger on the menu, no one is suddenly going to look at my $100 hamburger and think it's a steal.
No, probably not.
They're just going to think my restaurant is completely out of its mind. So where does this actually break down?
What's fascinating here is that that is the exact critique leveled by behavioral economists like Daniel Kahneman.
Yeah, while Ariely identifies a major vulnerability in our psychology, Kahneman points out that human beings are not just deterministic robots mindlessly following pricing cues.
Mm.
Context matters immensely, but our intrinsic motivations, our deeply held personal values, and our individual circumstances act as natural boundary conditions.
So the decoy only really works if I'm already in the market for the thing or if I'm somewhat uncertain about my preferences.
Precisely. Like if you are deeply allergic to mushrooms, placing a $500 truffle burger next to a $100 portobello burger isn't going to manipulate you into buying the portobello.
Right, I'm just not buying a mushroom burger.
Exactly. Your intrinsic aversion overrides the relative pricing cue. The decoy effect is a powerful current in the water, but it's not an absolute law of physics. We retain our agency. We just have to actively engage our slower, more analytical thinking to override the snap judgments of relativity.
Which is something you really have to actively manage, especially when it comes to your own happiness. Because relativity is the absolute thief of joy when it comes to salary.
Oh, without a doubt.
You could be perfectly content making $80,000 a year. You pay your rent, you take a vacation, you go out to dinner, you feel successful.
Sure.
But the exact second you discover the guy in the cubicle next to you who does the exact same job is making $85,000, you are devastated.
Yeah, it ruins your day.
Your absolute purchasing power hasn't changed by a single cent, but your relative standing has shifted and it completely obliterates your satisfaction.
We are constantly looking sideways to determine our worth. It's human nature.
So if relativity is how we compare things side by side in the present moment, how does this mechanism work when we start comparing the present to the past?
Well, that transition from space to time introduces us to the concept of anchoring.
And the story of James Assail, the Pearl King, is the ultimate illustration of this. Imagine it's the aftermath of World War II.
Okay.
Assail is an entrepreneur who had fled Europe, ended up in Cuba, and made some money trading Swiss watches. By the 1970s, he gets his hands on a massive supply of Tahitian black pearls. Now, at this point in history, black pearls were essentially worthless.
Right, there was no market for them at all. Nobody wanted them.
They were completely unproven. So Assail doesn't just toss them into a cheap souvenir shop in Polynesia. He engineers their value out of thin air by anchoring them to the highest possible opulence.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
He takes these worthless pearls, puts outrageous astronomical price tags on them, and places them in the windows of the most exclusive jewelry stores on Fifth Avenue, nestled right next to diamonds and rubies.
It is a masterclass in psychological manipulation. Assail intuitively understood a profound biological phenomenon known as imprinting.
Like with animals.
Exactly. If you look at the famous natural experiments by Konrad Lorenz with baby goslings, he found that when they hatch, they imprint on the very first moving object they see. It's supposed to be their mother.
Right.
But if Lorenz was the first thing they saw, they would imprint on him and follow him around the farm forever. They formed a permanent, lifelong attachment based entirely on an initial arbitrary exposure.
And we do the exact same thing with price tags.
We absolutely do. Just as the geese imprint on the first moving object, humans imprint on the first price or value we encounter for a completely new product. We establish an anchor.
Wow.
Assail knew that if the very first time the public saw a black pearl, it was sitting next to a diamond with a massive price tag, Their brains would instantly imprint that correlation. Black pearls equal extreme luxury.
The craziest part is that the anchor doesn't even have to make logical sense. There was an experiment run at MIT that proved this concept of arbitrary coherence.
Oh, the Social Security number one.
Yes. Researchers had students write down the last two digits of their social security number. So yours might be 89 minus 12. Complete random nonsense digits. Then they had these students bid in an auction for various items: bottles of wine, wireless keyboards, luxury
And our
chocolates.
results are just wild.
Staggering. The students whose social security numbers ended in higher digits, the 80s and 90s, consistently bid significantly more money for the items than the students with lower digits.
Just think about the implications of that for a second. The researchers forced an arbitrary number into the students' working memory. Because that number was active in their brains when they were asked to assign a value, it acted as a gravitational anchor.
Right, they unconsciously tethered their willingness to pay for a bottle of wine to a random piece of government identification.
It proves that once an anchor is set, even if we objectively know it is entirely irrelevant, it still exerts a massive pull on our logic.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting. Does this mean I'm just forever repeating a pricing mistake I made years ago? Like, how does this actually affect our daily habits?
Well, it leads directly to a phenomenon called self-hurting. And the classic example is the evolution of your coffee habit.
Oh, this hits close to home. You spend years used to paying maybe $1 for a regular cup of drip coffee at a local diner. That's your anchor. Then, one day, you wander into a high-end coffee shop. The ambiance is nice, the barista is playing cool music, and you buy a fancy latte for $4. You treat it as an anomaly. But the next time you walk past that shop, you don't compare the $4 back to the diner's $1 anymore.
The baseline has shifted.
You compare it to your own past behavior. You tell yourself, well, I paid $4 last time and I enjoyed it, so I guess I am a person who pays $4 for coffee now.
Exactly.
You use your own past action as the new anchor. You literally herd yourself into a new, more expensive habit based on a single arbitrary decision.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it completely fractures traditional economic theory.
How so?
Well, for centuries, classical economics has relied on the premise that supply and demand are two entirely independent forces. Consumer demand dictates what people are willing to pay, and the supply side rises or falls to meet it. It's supposed to be this rational, self-balancing scale.
But the scale is totally rigged.
It's a closed loop. If consumer demand, our willingness to pay, can be manipulated by arbitrary anchors set by the supply side, then the entire free market model is flawed.
That is wild.
Right. The sellers set an artificially high price, our brains imprint on it like baby goslings, and suddenly our demand adjusts to match their arbitrary anchor. Free markets aren't perfectly rational at all.
Because we're just chasing the anchors.
Exactly. Because our decisions are so easily swayed by these artificial starting points, there's a strong argument that government intervention and regulation might actually be necessary to ensure market stability, especially when it comes to essential services like healthcare or housing, where we can't afford to be anchored to astronomical prices.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So we've seen how we are manipulated by high prices and decoy prices, but what happens when you remove the price entirely?
Right.
Let's talk about the psychology of free, because zero is not just a number on a price tag.
Oh no. Zero is an entirely different category in human psychology. It is perhaps the most powerful emotional trigger in all of commerce.
There's a famous behavioral experiment with chocolate that captures this perfectly. Researchers set up a booth and offered people a choice between two items: a very high-quality Lindt truffle for 15 cents and a standard Hershey's Kiss for 1 cent.
Okay.
At those prices, the Lindt truffle is heavily discounted. It is objectively a fantastic mathematical deal. Unsurprisingly, the vast majority of people chose the Lindt truffle. They recognized the inherent value.
Makes perfect sense.
But then, the researchers dropped the price of both chocolates by exactly 1 cent.
The completely linear reduction. The Lindt truffle is now 14 cents, and the Hershey's Kiss is 0 cents. It is perfectly free.
The mathematical difference in price, that 14-cent spread, is identical to the first scenario. A perfectly rational economic robot would still choose the Lindt truffle because the relative value hasn't changed at all.
But human beings lose their minds.
Completely. The moment the Kiss became free, people overwhelmingly abandoned the superior Lindt truffle and scrambled to grab the free Hershey's Kiss. The word free completely short-circuited their ability to evaluate the deal.
And the mechanism driving this irrationality, is deeply rooted in our evolutionary fear of loss.
Like a survival instinct.
Yeah, exactly. Whenever we enter into any financial transaction, no matter how small, there is an inherent psychological risk. We might not like the product, we might regret spending the money, we might find a better deal later. There's always a potential downside.
Right.
But when an item is free, our brain perceives zero downside risk. The amygdala calms down. The fear of loss is completely eliminated. This sudden euphoric absence of risk creates an emotional surge that entirely drowns out our logical valuation of the item.
Which is why we do crazy things. I mean, have you ever found yourself making terrible choices with your time just because something was free?
Oh, guilty.
We value our time professionally at, say, 30, 40, maybe $50 an hour. Yet we will stand in the freezing cold for 45 minutes just to get a free promotional t-shirt we don't even like and will only ever wear to paint the garage.
It makes no sense.
Or we will wait in a chaotic line for an hour to get a free scoop of ice cream on Free Tone Day that would have cost us $3 to buy on a normal Tuesday.
We will happily burn $40 worth of our own time to acquire an item worth $3 simply because the price tag says zero. It's a massive blind spot.
So free completely overrides our logic in consumer markets. But that exact same introduction of money, or lack thereof, has an even wilder, more destructive effect when we bring it into our personal lives. This is the collision of social norms and market norms.
Right, because we navigate our lives using two very distinct operating systems.
Okay, break that down for us.
The first is the world of social norms. This is the realm of friendly requests, doing favors for neighbors, helping a friend move a couch, or volunteering. In this world, there is no expectation of immediate or equivalent financial compensation. The currency is warmth, community, and mutual support.
And the second operating system is market norms.
Right. Market norms are strictly transactional. It's wages, prices, rents, cost-benefit analyses. You do X for me, I pay you Y. It is cold, calculated, and highly efficient.
So what happens when they collide?
Well, the friction occurs when we accidentally blur the lines between these two worlds.
The quickest way to understand this is to imagine the most cringe-inducing Thanksgiving dinner possible.
Oh, boy.
You go over to your family's house. Your mother has been cooking for 3 days straight. She's exhausted, but the turkey is perfect, the side dishes are amazing, the whole family is happy. At the end of the night, you stand up from the table, pull out your wallet, look your mother in the eye and say, "Mom, that was an incredible meal. How much do I owe you? Is $100 enough?"
Just hearing that scenario makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't just make the room awkward. It is deeply offensive.
It instantly annihilates the warmth. You have taken an act of love and reduced it to a catering transaction. It works the same way in romantic relationships. If someone takes you out on a lovely date, you don't hand them $60 at the end of the night to compensate them for their time. It's completely taboo.
And the behavioral experiments on this reveal a fascinating nuance. Introducing a small amount of money is actually far more destructive than introducing no money at all.
Wait, really?
Yeah. They ran a study asking lawyers if they would do pro bono work for needy retirees. This is a request based purely on social norms, doing a favor for the community. And, many of the lawyers said yes.
Okay.
But then they asked a different group of lawyers to do the same work for a deeply discounted rate, say $30 an hour. Almost every single lawyer refused.
Wow. Because offering them $30 an hour forces their brains out of the social norms operating system and into the market norms operating system.
Exactly the shift. At $0, they are charitable pillars of the community. It's an identity they are proud of. But the moment you introduce $30 an hour, they are no longer doing a favor, they are being hired.
And as highly paid lawyers, $30 an hour is a massive insult to their market value.
Exactly. By trying to compensate them just a little bit, the researchers completely destroyed the social goodwill. Once a social norm is replaced by a market norm, it is incredibly difficult to get the social warmth back. The relationship fundamentally changes.
You literally cannot unring that bell. So what does this all mean? We've covered incredible ground today. We've seen how our brains avoid the hard work of absolute math, preferring to be tugged around by relative decoys that make us buy the expensive linguine.
Yep, the decoy trap.
We've explored how we imprint on arbitrary anchors like social security numbers or a fancy latte that stick in our heads for years, acting like ghosts shaping our current spending.
The arbitrary coherence.
Exactly. We are irrationally lured by the magic of zero risk to the point of wasting our most valuable asset on our time. And we walk a razor-thin tightrope between market and social norms where a single misplaced dollar can ruin Thanksgiving.
It can definitely feel a bit overwhelming, to realize how predictably irrational we actually are.
Def-
But the ultimate takeaway here isn't to despair over our flawed wiring. It is to use awareness as a defense mechanism. Simply knowing that arbitrary coherence exists or understanding the zero price effect, well, it gives you a cognitive pause button.
Right.
The next time you are faced with a decoy price that makes an upgrade look like a steal, or you find yourself standing in the freezing cold for a free t-shirt, you can step back, recognize the hidden force at play, and actively choose to make a rational decision rather than just running on autopilot.
You can actually grab the wheel of the ship. But I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to chew on today. We started by talking about those hidden forces shaping your choices. If our decisions, our spending habits, and even our perceived values are so easily manipulated by external decoys and random anchors, how much of your personal taste is actually yours?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Are your favorite brands, your coffee habits, and your aesthetic preferences genuinely a reflection of your unique identity? Or are they just the lingering ghosts of clever marketing tricks you bumped into years ago?
That is a question that challenges the very core of our individuality.
Keep questioning the compass. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.